What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. Pirates lose their final spring training game of 2025 by a final score of 5-1 here in Fort Myers to the Twins. They finish the Grapefruit League campaign with a record of 14-15-1. Another losing season. Shucks. I mean, none of these games matter. If you care about that, then I don't know what else to tell you. So, not a lot of breakdowns from this game today, but instead, I have three takeaways from what we know right now for the opening day roster. Now, before we get into this, some things need to be established here. We don't know the final opening day roster. Unlike years past where the opening day roster is revealed the final day of camp, there are still decisions being made. Derek Shelton told us before today's game that the decisions won't be finalized until Wednesday, which is the day before opening day. And I think there are a couple of variables that go into that, which we'll start to discuss right now. So first big note when we're looking over this opening day roster, from what we've learned since the last time we spoke on this channel, is that we now know what the starting rotation will look like. The fifth starter was decided, and that job was earned by Carmen Mlodzinski. It was him and Thomas Harrington in competition for that spot. The club went with the guy who has big league experience and who's already on the 40-man roster, rather than Harrington, who MLB Pipeline rates as the number 79 prospect in all of baseball, and a guy who's pitched as high as AAA, but has yet to pitch at the game's highest level. I personally get that decision. Harrington obviously is a guy that I think has more upside as a baseball player, but as far as what's best for the club right now, I don't know if it's worth burning a spot on the 40-man for Harrington just yet, because we don't know if he's going to be someone. I thought he was good this spring, but I don't know if he was good enough to just assume that he's going to be with the club from start to finish this year. And I still think there's more room for development in AAA, and because of that, you have to start him in AAA. Carmen Mlodzinski, I thought, was good enough to be a fifth starter. I know the strength of this team was supposed to be its starting rotation, and there were a lot more known names than Carmen Mlodzinski, a career reliever, being the fifth starter. But when you consider what they'll need from him, especially in the first couple of months, by the time that Chandler and Harrington are big league ready, or maybe Jones is ready, depending on his injury status, which we'll get into soon, I don't think it's going to be too demanding. And quite frankly, Carmen looked better than Harrington this spring. His ERA was like 2 runs lower. He added some pitches. I think he'll be a perfectly fine fifth starter, at least for the first month of the season. So that's my first big takeaway from today as far as the roster information is concerned. Second takeaway is Jared Jones. No update on Jared Jones, but he plays a factor in all of this. The team might downplay that a little bit, but I still think that, one, we learned that since Carmen's the fifth starter, it looks like Jared Jones is going to start this season on the IL. It's either that or they're going to roster a player who's not at 100% health for at least a week until he's able to make to make a start, and that would come sometime through the second time of the rotation. So it's looking like Jared's going to start the year on the IL. I mean, that's not anything breaking. That based off the rhetoric that this team's kind of already given out, they've said it's going to be a difficult task for him to start, even if he is healthy, start the year at the major league level, because he missed his last spring training start. Don't know the severity of his injury, but I think that depending on how severe it is, we could see different moves made. If this guy has to go on the 60-day IL, that opens up a spot on the 40-man roster for another guy, another non-roster invitee to make the team that maybe wouldn't have made the team had Jones been healthy. If he goes on the 15-day, that's another circumstance because that 40-man roster spot isn't open. So something to keep an eye on there as we find out this finalized opening day roster on Wednesday. I think Jones's health status is going to play a little bit of a factor in it. Third thing to note are just the open battles that still exist. I mean, the battling is done because there are no more games being played between now and opening day as far as the Pirates are concerned. But the evaluation, I guess we could say. There's 2 main spots that are up for grabs. One is in the bullpen, where I think there are 3 jobs up for competition, you look, there are 5 guys who I think are making this team regardless. And those are David Bednar, Tim Meza, Caleb Ferguson, Dennis Santana, Colin Holderman. Those 5 guys, they were making the club regardless of what happened this spring pretty much. So those other 3 bullpen jobs, there's some interesting candidates for them. You look at some non-roster guys like Tanner Rainey, who had a really good spring. Ryan Borucki, who I think had the best spring out of any non-roster invite. I think both of them should make this team. So now you look at the guys on the 40-man. Who's the odd man out? Who's getting DFA'd? Who's getting traded between today, Monday, and Thursday, opening day, to make room for these guys? There are some guys. Peter Strzelecki is a guy on the 40-man. I'm not sure if he makes this team, and I don't know what they would do with him. Joey Wentz is a left-hander who I thought had a really good spring, but I don't think they're going to take 4 left-handers in this bullpen. I don't know if they're necessarily thrilled about the idea of taking 3, but Borucki was so good that they were going to have to roster him, I believe. So those are 2 guys that who knows what happens there. Justin Lawrence is a guy who I think does get one of those 3 spots. He was a waiver claim, obviously, from Colorado earlier this spring. He's in the mix. Hunter Stratton, a guy who's also on the 40-man, I think he gets optioned to AAA. Shelton said, I believe yesterday, that it's a long shot that he makes the big league club out of camp just because he's only pitched once this spring due to him still recovering from that knee injury. But it is interesting to see some of these guys that are in competition, what they do to clear up roster spots on the 40-man if they take the non-roster invitees that I just mentioned. And also just thinking about what they would have done if the starting rotation remained healthy. What would have happened if Oviedo was healthy this spring? What would have happened if Jared Jones was healthy this spring? I don't know if Carmen Mlodzinski makes this team as a reliever. Kyle Nicholas didn't. We already know that. So there's a lot of depth in this bullpen. Those are the battles there. The other battles to highlight, I think most of the position player group is already determined. I think there are 3 guys competing for the final 2 spots, and those guys are DJ Stewart, Hwan, Jack Suwinski. When you look, knowing now that Endy Rodriguez, the team said, is going to play some first base in the regular season. We've seen Jared Triolo and Adam Frazier get reps there as well this spring. I think that trio right there eliminates the need for a DJ Stewart. So I think that Jack Suwinski and Hwan are going to get those final 2 roster spots. Those have been 2 of, I think, the top 3 hitters for this team this spring, with the other being Joey Bart, who we always knew was going to make the club. So you look at this roster, it's a lot of left-handed bats on the team. You go through it. I mean, you've got Endy Rodriguez, who's a switch hitter, Frazier, a left-handed bat in the infield, along with Bay, Suwinski in the outfield, O'Neal Cruz, a left-handed hitter. Given who's starting at first, depending on who's starting at first base, this team might not have a true right-handed batting option coming off the bench. It's an interesting roster construction. I agree with the idea of rewarding the guys who hit the ball well in spring, and Suwinski and Bay did that. They deserve to make this team. It's just interesting to see how the bench will be used with 5 true outfielders, Bay no longer an infielder. So the infield options are scarce. First base is still, I think, a big area of concern. You don't really have a true first baseman. Your guys getting reps there are a utility infielder, a veteran utility infielder who's barely played first base, and a catcher who played 1 game at first base this spring. So that'll be interesting, a lot to cover. Again, we will have more updates for you on the final opening day roster on Wednesday. We'll have you covered then and throughout the whole regular season, from game 1 in Miami to game 162 in Atlanta. And if there are any other games to follow after that, we'll be there. Subscribe to this YouTube channel for that coverage at PG Pirates. I'm Noah Hiles. You can read all of my work at post-gazette.com. I'll see you again in Miami. Opening day is coming up soon.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.